tariffs yet? Then let me tell you, not yet, because the US President Donald Trump is not done with his tariff one-upmanship with China just yet. Just a day after Donald Trump hiked the tariffs on China to a staggering 125%, it appears even that wasn't enough. In the latest, the US president has now decided to hike the tariff on China further to 145%. Yes, you heard that right, 145%, meaning consumers in the United States might have to pay nearly 1.5 times the cost of the product for tariff alone. A Chinese product that costs $10 in the US may now cost nearly $25, meaning the person would have to pay more for the tariff than for the cost of the product itself. But when Donald Trump was questioned on this, he made it clear that he would not let China take advantage of the Americans.
Well, we'll see what happens with China. We would love to be able to work a deal. They've really taken advantage of our country for a long period of time. They've ripped us off beyond nobody. How people stood for it, sitting in my position, is not even believable. And we're talking about many presidents, not just a couple. But they did, and all we're doing is putting it back in shape. We're resetting the table. And I'm sure that we'll be able to get along very well. I have great respect for President Xi. He's been, in a true sense, he's been a friend of mine for a long period of time. And I think that we'll end up working out something that's very good for both countries.
And defending his move, US President Donald Trump said he's very happy as he opened a meeting with his cabinet. He said of yesterday's retreat from many of his steep tariffs and the market's wild swings. He said, "We had a big day yesterday." Seated around a large oval table, Trump had each department head give brief reports on what they're doing. Several cabinet secretaries used the opportunity to slip in praise from Trump's style of leadership. That's the latest update that is coming in as far as the reciprocal tariffs by US are concerned.
It's been amazing. We had a big day yesterday. There'll always be transition difficulty, but we had in history, it was the biggest day in history, the markets. So we're very, very happy with the way the country's running. We're trying to get the world to treat us fairly. The country is making approximately $2 billion a day. And when you think of it, we've never done that before, never come close to it. And the number is probably $3.5 billion.
But viewers, just look at the figures that I'm about to show you, and you might just get a sense of why this tariff war between the two countries, that is US and China, is starting to look a little bizarre. Now, we'll start with the tariffs that were imposed in February. The tariff stood at 10% in February. These are the tariffs imposed by US on China. In February, it stood at 10%. In March, it rose to 20%. On April 2nd, when the reciprocal tariffs were imposed on other nations as well, it stood at 54%. Then it was raised to 104% on April 8. On April 9, it stood at 125%, and just yesterday, that is April 10, it was raised to 145%. So the tariff that has been imposed on US on China, as per the latest order, stands at 145%. No wonder then that an understandably miffed Chinese government is accusing the Trump administration of weaponizing tariff, but also goes on to say that the World Trade Organization must step in and end these unreasonable tariffs.
美方出于一己之私，将关税作为实施极限施压、谋取私利的武器，严重侵犯各国的正当权益。 严重违反世界贸易组织的规则，严重损害以规则为基础的多边贸易体制，严重冲击全球经济秩序稳定。这是公然冒天下之大不韪，与整个世界作对。
So there's no end to the tariff war between US and China. As per the latest order, 145% is the figure at which the reciprocal tariff that has been imposed by US on China stands at. Remember, it was earlier at 125 and then US again raised it to 145% just yesterday. In fact, we're getting some more inputs on this story. Donald Trump escalates tariff wars, hits China with more tariffs. Total levy on China stands at 145%. Confirmation by White House. Trump also spoke on China. Well, we'll see what happens with China. We would love to be able to work a deal. They've really taken advantage of our country for a long period of time. They've ripped us off beyond anybody. Nobody. How people stood for it, sitting in my position, is not even believable. And we're talking about many precedents, not just a couple. But they did, and all we're doing is putting it back in shape. We're resetting the table, and I'm sure that we'll be able to get along very well. I have great respect for President Jinping, and he's been, in a true sense, he's been a friend of mine for a long period of time.
Well, we'll see what happens with China. We would love to be able to work a deal. They've really taken advantage of our country for a long period of time. They've ripped us off beyond anybody, nobody. How people stood for it, sitting in my position, is not even believable. We're talking about many presidents, not just a couple. But they did, and all we're doing is putting it back in shape. We're resetting the table. And I'm sure that we'll be able to get along very well. I have great respect for President Xi. He's been, in a true sense, he's been a friend of mine for a long period of time. And I think that we'll end up working out something that's very good for both countries. I look forward to it.
And my colleague Srinjoy is now joining us with more details on this. Srinjoy, 145% is where the tariff by US on China stands at currently. Do you think it's high time that the two countries should sit on a table and discuss this out?
Well, this should have been done much earlier, because at this point, it's getting more and more difficult because the tariff war is at its height. Now, there are two problems here. The first relates to the American consumer. Now, America imports about 450 to 500 billion worth of goods. Now, if there is tariff of 145%, the American consumer will look for replacements. So if there are replacements, it's very good for these 300 million people in America. But if there aren't replacements immediately available, then there is a problem with inflation. So that's really the first thing. As far as the American exporters are concerned, they have a problem too, because China has imposed 84% tariff on all American goods. So the American exports to China, which amount to 150% or so, or 84%, also are under stress. And these exporters will also face problems. Now, there was a problem at Wall Street. Wall Street had tanked, after which, of course, Donald Trump reduced tariffs for all other countries except China to 10%. So this would probably have been done after requests from his businessman friends, many of whom would have suffered when Wall Street tanked. So there are all these problems that have to be dealt with. WTO is one possibility, but clearly this is the beginning of a huge trade war. Where it will end, we do not know. Can you imagine China imposing 84% tariff on American goods? America imposing 145% on $500 billion worth of goods it imports. Now, no country exports as much as China, and by a long chalk. So, as I said earlier, if there are replacements for the Chinese goods, then the population of America, the consumers of America, have a breather. Otherwise, there is inflation in store.
Right. Srinjoy, thank you for those details and for that context. With that, we're now slipping into a very short break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.